Back in kindergarten, I grabbed my childhood sweetheart and declared she would be my wife. Our parents burst out laughing, all teasing that I was destined to be a hopeless romantic. Yet, the woman who later became known in our circle as the resident ice queen became my clingy little shadow. At 5, she absolutely refused to have her picture taken alone, tugging at the corner of my shirt with her chubby little hand, insisting that I be in the photo with her. At 18, she cornered me on the way to school, her voice playful and coy as she said, "Ethan, you're mine. You can't run away." At 20, the moment we were legally old enough to marry, she couldn't wait to broadcast her love for me on the Jumbotron in Times Square. "Ethan, for the rest of our lives, I am yours." But at 25, she was drugged by a rival at a business gala and spent a night of passion with a male college student. Furious, I filed for divorce. She sent the guy out of the country overnight and knelt before me in the pouring rain, pleading, "Ethan, I was wrong. Please, forgive me just this once." Seeing her pale face, my resolve softened, but later I ran into them at the hospital. That same college student was accompanying her to a prenatal appointment. Her eyes red, she explained, "Ethan, 2 weeks ago, I was in a car accident while on a business trip overseas. He was the one who pulled me from the wreckage, risking his own life as the car was about to explode. He saved me. Then, I found out I was pregnant with his child, and my grandmother threatened to kill herself if I didn't keep it." She wrapped her arms tightly around my waist, her voice trembling. "Ethan, please don't leave me, okay? I swear, as soon as the baby is born, I'll send him away. I'll leave the child at the family estate. Neither of them will ever cross your path again." Swallowing the pain in my heart, I believed her again. The final straw came at an auction. She bid against me for my late mother's necklace, each of her bids more aggressive than the last. In the end, she made a show-stopping bid, won it, and then gave the necklace to that college student. I stormed into her private suite to confront her, but she just calmly explained, "He grew up poor, Ethan. It was the only thing here he really wanted. Can't you just let him have it?" In that moment, I just started laughing. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. "And what if I won't?" She frowned. "Ethan, don't be difficult. I'm due any day now. Once the baby is born, everything will go back to the way it was." I looked at her, and my heart felt as if it had been split in two with an axe. The way it was? What was that even like? Did she truly remember? "Chloe!" Julian's panicked voice came from behind him. He was leaning against the wall, his face pale. "I think I'm running a fever. I feel awful." Chloe's expression changed in a flash. She shoved me aside without a second thought and rushed to Julian's side. I stumbled backward, the side of my waist slamming into the corner of a table. Pain shot through me, and a cold sweat instantly drenched my shirt. My voice shook as I called out to her, "Chloe!" But she never turned around. She hurried away with Julian, leaving me with nothing but the sight of her retreating back. A life debt and now a child that belonged to them. "Chloe, you'll never be free of him. How could we ever go back to the way things were?" I numbly got into the car. The driver asked cautiously, "Sir, shall we head back to the house?" I closed my eyes. "Take me to my lawyer's office." 2 hours later, I walked into the hospital holding the freshly drafted divorce papers. Outside the top-floor VIP suite, the bodyguards saw me and awkwardly lowered their gazes. I stood at the end of the hall watching. Chloe had rented out the entire floor for Julian, with doctors and nurses at his beck and call. She never left his bedside, tensing up as if the world were ending at his slightest frown. Julian said in a soft voice, "I'm craving those soup dumplings from that little breakfast place in the West End." Without a moment's hesitation, Chloe grabbed her car keys and headed out. "Wait here. I'll be right back." I stood in the shadows, my heart aching as if it were being carved out of my chest. Only after she was gone did I push open the door to his room. The moment Julian saw me, he put on a pitiful expression. "Mr. Shaw, are you here to blame me?" "I'm so sorry. I really didn't mean any harm. I just loved that necklace so much. Even though Chloe took it from you to give to me, she just wanted to show me a bit of the high life. She said after the baby is born, she'll go back to you." I let out a cold laugh. "It's just the two of us here. You can drop the act." I was in no mood for his masterful performance. "Chloe gave you $50 million to disappear years ago, yet here you are, having gotten her pregnant. I know exactly what you're after." His eyes hardened, his expression turning awkward. "I'm done playing this game with you too," I said, holding out a document. "These are divorce papers. If I give them to her, she'll never sign. You need to find a way to get her signature on them without her realizing what they are." Julian bit his lip. "You've got it all wrong. I never wanted to break you two up. I cut him off. This is your one and only chance. Think it over. Julian stared at the papers for a long time before finally taking them. Thank you, Mr. Shaw, for giving our family of 3 a chance. A family of 3. The words felt like a dull knife twisting in my chest, the pain so sharp it made my breathing hitch. Then I wish you and your family of 3 a lifetime of happiness. Back at the house, I pulled out a cardboard box and began to pack away everything that reminded me of Chloe. Chloe and I grew up together. There were too many memories to count. The first thing I put in the box was a photo album. I opened it to the first page, a picture of us when we were 5. She was wearing a little dress, a serious expression on her face as she stood beside me, but her hand was secretly clutching the hem of my shirt. Mrs. Davis, Chloe's mom, told me she'd refused to have her picture taken alone that day. That was the first time she showed that possessive streak of hers. The second was a button from her high school uniform. On graduation day, it was a tradition for the guys to try and get a button from the girl they liked. I stayed in my seat, but when I was packing up to leave, I found her second button lying in my desk with a note. You're only allowed to take mine. Even back then, she knew how to use her status as a Davis to keep other girls away from me. The third was my wedding ring. The very day I turned 20, she proposed on the Jumbotron in Times Square. As rose petals rained down from a helicopter, the ring gleamed in her hand. Her eyes were full of love as she slid it onto my finger and said, Ethan, for the rest of our lives, I am yours. If it hadn't been for Julian, I truly believed we would have grown old together. I gave a bitter laugh, placed all of it into the box, and threw the whole thing in the trash. The next morning, I was woken by a commotion downstairs. I walked out to see the staff carrying bag after bag of luxury goods into the living room. Julian stood in the foyer, shaking his head with a look of embarrassment. Chloe, this is too much. I never asked for any of this. Chloe looked at him tenderly. Just accept them. I bought them for you. I know you didn't have much growing up. Just then, she saw me. Her expression froze for a second before she said, Ethan, I'm sorry. I only bought things for Julian this time. Let me know what you want, and I'll get it for you later. Before I could say anything, Julian spoke up softly. Chloe, I've already prepared the one gift Mr. Shaw wants most. With that, he walked over and handed me a manila envelope. I opened it. Inside was the divorce agreement already signed by her. I stared at her signature on the papers, my heart feeling like it was being crushed by an invisible fist. Julian had actually done it. From now on, their little family of 3 could live happily ever after. And as for me, starting today, I would live only for myself. Then came the day Chloe was supposed to take me horseback riding, a trip she'd planned to help me clear my head. I didn't want to arouse suspicion, so I went along with it. Just as I finished changing, Julian appeared silently in the doorway. Chloe? Mr. Shaw? Are you two going riding? That sounds amazing. I've never been on a horse before. Could I possibly come along? He looked at Chloe with hopeful eyes. Chloe's brow furrowed. No, I promised Ethan it would be just the 2 of us today. Julian bit his lower lip. But I really want to go. I've been so busy taking care of you lately, I feel like I haven't had any time for myself. His voice trailed off, laced with a subtle, wheedling tone. I couldn't listen to any more of it and turned to walk out. As I reached the door, I heard Chloe's resigned sigh behind me. Fine, but you do exactly as I say the entire time. At the stables, I quietly went to the stalls, picked out a gentle mare, and expertly saddled her. Chloe was the one who had taught me how to do all this. And now, the woman who had taught me to ride only had eyes for another man. She fastened his helmet, adjusted his stirrups herself, fussing over every detail to make sure he was comfortable. She held the lead rope for Julian's horse the entire time, never once letting go. This continued until her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and frowned. Julian immediately said, with practiced consideration, Chloe, you should take that. I think I've got the hang of it now. I'll be fine on my own. Chloe still looked worried, checking one last time that he was secure in the saddle before walking aside to take the call. I pulled my horse to a stop at the edge of the paddock, silently watching. The sun cast Chloe's shadow long across the ground. She was tapping the back of her phone with her index finger as she talked, a nervous habit of hers I knew all too well. Julian suddenly rode up beside me, a smirk on his face. Mr. Shaw, what do you think would happen if 2 horses were to collide? I've never seen that before. Before I could answer, he dug his heels into his horse's flanks, sending it crashing into mine. Both startled horses reared up. I gripped the reins with all my might, but his horse was completely spooked, shrieking as it bolted towards the fence. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Julian accidentally lose his grip and tumble from the saddle. Julian! Chloe moved like a blur, diving to catch Julian just before he hit the ground. At that same moment, a whole herd of spooked horses broke through a nearby fence and began stampeding right towards me. As my horse bucked wildly, I screamed, "Chloe, help me!" But my voice was lost in the thunder of hooves. I saw her help the unconscious Julian to his feet and run for the exit without a single glance back. The dust kicked up by the stampede blinded me. I felt the reins rip from my hands as I was flung into the air. I landed hard, a sharp, stabbing pain shooting through my ribs, but it was nothing compared to the feeling of my heart being ripped to shreds. I curled into a ball on the dirt, listening as the hoofbeats grew louder, and slowly closed my eyes. I woke up to a piercing pain. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital room. I turned my head slightly and saw Chloe sitting by my bed, dark circles under her eyes. "Ethan, you're awake?" She leaned in, her voice thick with relief. "Does anything hurt?" I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry and raw. Chloe suddenly blurted out, her tone urgent. "Julian was injured in the fall. He has a blood clotting disorder, and he won't stop bleeding. The hospital is short on his blood type." My heart sank. "You're the only match," Chloe said, taking my hand. "Ethan, please, will you give him some blood?" It was absurd, utterly absurd. I snatched my hand away, the movement aggravating my broken ribs. I hissed in pain. She had left me to be trampled, and now, without a single word of explanation or apology, her first request was for me to ignore my own injuries and save Julian. "No," Chloe's brow tightened. "For the sake of our future, can you please just do this? Just this once. He's an innocent party in all of this. It's not like he asked to have a child this way." A chill ran down my spine. I stared into her eyes, searching for any hint of guilt, any flicker of concern for me. But in the eyes I had loved for 20 years, all I saw was impatience and anxiety. A nurse appeared at the door and whispered, "Ms. Davis, Mr. Miller's condition is worsening." Chloe immediately got to her feet and practically dragged me out of bed. "Ethan, please, I'm begging you." I was half carried to the phlebotomy lab. The moment the needle slid into my vein, I felt a pain that took my breath away. The nurse looked at me, confused. "Is it hurting? That's strange." I was very gentle. I shook my head, but I couldn't stop my eyes from welling up. But Chloe just stood outside the room, glancing impatiently at her watch, not even looking in my direction. After they had taken a pint of blood, my vision began to swim. The nurse helped me to a chair, and I watched Chloe sprint down the hall to Julian's room without a backward glance. I stumbled after her and stood outside his partially open door. Julian was lying in bed, his face pale, a thick bandage wrapped around his wrist. Chloe sat on the edge of the bed, holding his hand, her expression so tender it made my stomach turn. "Don't be scared. It's going to be okay now," she soothed. "I'm here." My eyes fell on Julian's wrist. He was wearing a familiar string of wooden beads. I had brought them back for her from a spiritual retreat in Sedona 3 years ago. She had put them on and promised she would wear them for the rest of her life. And now they were on another man's wrist. She had given away the gift I had so earnestly sought for her. She had given it to Julian. The pain in my chest was unbearable. I couldn't watch another second. I turned and walked away. The next morning, a nurse came in to check on me. "Mr. Shaw, we just need you to fill out some paperwork for your file." She handed me a clipboard. I filled out the form robotically. When I got to the line for marital status, I paused, then wrote, firmly, "Single." The nurse looked at it, surprised. "Mr. Shaw, I think you might have made a mistake here. You checked, single, but isn't Ms. Davis your wife?" I replied calmly, "No, she won't be for much longer." The door was suddenly thrown open. Chloe stood there, staring at me in disbelief. "Ethan, what did you just say?" The air in the room went still. The nurse awkwardly clutched the clipboard and scurried out, leaving me and Chloe staring at each other from across the room. "Are you still angry about the blood transfusion?" She seemed to think she understood, stepping closer and reaching for my face. "It was a matter of life and death, Ethan. I didn't have a choice." I turned my head away, and her hand froze in midair. She studied my face for a long moment, as if searching for something, but finally, she just glanced at her watch and stood up. "It's time for Julian's medication. I'll check on you later." The moment the door clicked shut, I sank back onto the pillows, stared at the ceiling, and began to laugh. Chloe didn't come back for 5 whole days. I was discharged and went home. I made the soup I had promised, had the driver take it to the hospital, and then I started to pack. I didn't own much. a few changes of clothes. A photo of us was on the nightstand. I stared at it for a while before placing it face down. Then one evening, Chloe came home unexpectedly. She held up a gold foil invitation, her eyes sparkling the way they used to when we were young. It's our high school's centennial reunion. Everyone's getting together. You've been cooped up for days, it would be good to get out, see some old friends. What do you say? At the reunion, Chloe held my hand the whole night. Our old classmates teased us, saying the prom king and queen were still the perfect couple. Someone brought up the time she waited in line all night just to buy me a limited edition album. She smiled and tightened her arm around mine in a silent attempt to win me over. Suddenly, our old class president brought out a box. Remember our time capsule? Letters from 10 years ago. Time to return them to their rightful owners. Everyone crowded around to find their letter. I was about to open mine, but Chloe suddenly went rigid. Her phone was ringing. The caller ID read Julian. She gave me a hesitant look before stepping into the hall to take the call. She returned a minute later, her face ashen. Ethan, he fell down a flight of stairs. He's in the hospital. I cut her off calmly. Go. He needs you more. Looking relieved, she gave me a quick kiss on the corner of my mouth. I'll be back soon. I watched her hurry away, then walked over to the time capsule box and found Chloe's letter. On the envelope, it read, "To 26-year-old Chloe." I hesitated for a moment, but opened it anyway. The paper was yellowed with age, but her handwriting was still perfectly clear. 16-year-old Chloe had written in her bold, confident script, "To 26-year-old Chloe, I bet you're married to Ethan by now, aren't you? I'm so envious. The life you have is everything I've ever dreamed of, so you have to treat him right. You have to be happy with him, or I'll never forgive you. Remember to warm up his milk every night because of his sensitive stomach. You have to take him to Iceland to see the northern lights. He's been talking about it for 7 years. Remember he hates rainy days, and that he's allergic to shellfish. Oh, and remember he's afraid of the dark, so never, ever let him walk home alone at night." At the very bottom of the letter, in small print, was a line for me. "Ethan, if the me from 10 years in the future is ever unkind to you, you have to leave me. And never, ever forgive me." I gently traced the words with my finger and whispered to the empty air, "Okay, I'll do as you say." After the reunion, I hugged each of my old friends goodbye. Our class president's eyes were red as he said, "See you all at the next reunion." There wouldn't be a next time for me. I left the party and took a cab straight to the courthouse. Today was the day the divorce became final. I finally picked up the decree. The clerk confirmed one last time, "Mr. Shaw, are you absolutely sure?" "I'm sure." I watched the clerk stamp the papers. My heart felt hollowed out, but strangely, I also felt a sense of release. Before I left, I erased my digital footprint, closed my accounts, and bought a one-way plane ticket. As I boarded the plane, the sunset outside the window was a deep, bloody red. I looked out the window and suddenly remembered being 18, with Chloe blocking my path after school, saying, "Ethan, you're mine. You can't run away." "You were wrong, Chloe. This time I did run away, and I was never coming back." When Chloe arrived at the hospital, Julian was sitting up in bed, his eyes red and swollen. "Julian," she said, rushing to embrace him, whispering words of comfort. Julian put on his most innocent face. "Chloe, I know the only reason I've been able to stay by your side is because of the baby, because your grandmother asked me to look after you. Chloe, the truth is," he paused, "the truth is, I've always had feelings for you. That's why I couldn't stand by and do nothing when I saw you'd been drugged that night." Julian tightened his grip on her hand. "It's why I had to save you from that car wreck. Chloe, could you ever accept me?" The more carefully he spoke, the more conflicted Chloe felt. She pushed him away, but couldn't bring herself to be harsh. "Julian, after the baby is born, I'll give you enough money to start a new life abroad. You'll be set for life." Chloe's expression grew stern. "None of that matters to me, Chloe. What if the only thing I want is you?" Seeing her resolve, Julian grabbed her hand and pressed it to his chest. "Chloe, please, don't send me away." Chloe let out a heavy sigh. For some reason, she thought of me. No, she couldn't. She frantically pulled her hand away and walked to the door. "Julian, you know my heart belongs to Ethan. But your grandmother likes me," Julian said, his face pale as he sat on the bed. "She even said that if it's a boy, she'd want you to make things official with me." "Chloe, do you really feel nothing for me at all?" Chloe was flustered. "Julian, I don't care what my grandmother promised you. My heart is with Ethan. That's final." She quickly shut the door behind her, leaning against it and gasping for breath. She didn't understand why her heart, which had always beaten only for me, had wavered for a moment when faced with a pale and pleading Julian. It must be because of the baby, she thought. Chloe tried to convince herself of this as she drove to the office. She threw herself into her work because it was easier than confronting her own heart and the accusations of the girl she used to be. And so, Chloe didn't see the cold, mocking glint in Julian's eyes after she rushed out of the room. Julian's expression changed instantly, the pitiful act vanishing as if it had never been there. The Davis family already drove Ethan away, and she's still putting on this lovesick act, he muttered. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Hello, is this Ms. Vance's assistant? This is Julian. I need her recent schedule. Name your price, I just need to know where she'll be. I have something important to discuss with her. After hanging up, a slow smile spread across Julian's face. Chloe Davis, if I'd known you were going to turn me down, I never would have wasted my time on you. His eyes turned hard. But it's a good thing I always have a backup plan. At a private auction house, titans of industry and wealthy socialites gathered, buzzing with excitement over the lots about to go up for bid. Chloe walked in with heavy steps, entering her private suite just moments before the bidding started. Her grandmother, Mrs. Davis, immediately pulled her down to sit beside her. Chloe, dear, why are you so late? Chloe rubbed her temples, her voice thick with exhaustion. Grandma, something urgent came up at the office. Mrs. Davis looked at her with concern. Chloe, darling, you need to let others handle things at the company. Your only job right now is to rest and prepare for the baby. Look, I'm planning to bid on this dragon and phoenix heirloom locket. Wouldn't it be a wonderful gift for my great-grandchild? Chloe looked down at the auction catalog, a faint smile playing on her lips. Then, as if remembering something, her smile widened. That's very thoughtful, Grandma. I'm sure the baby will love it. That Julian is such a good boy, getting you pregnant after just one night, her grandmother said, beaming. Not like that other one. Never gave us a child, and even broke our family's ancestral jade. We're better off without him. She sniffed disdainfully. If you hadn't been so infatuated, I never would have approved that marriage in the first place. At the mention of my name, a sharp, hollow pain shot through Chloe's chest. Grandma, Ethan didn't mean to. We were the ones who kept things from him. Mrs. Davis snorted. You spoiled him rotten. He was so stubborn about not wanting children, and he'd throw a fit anytime, anywhere, with no regard for appearances. The more she spoke, the angrier she became, slamming the catalog onto the table. Julian is so much better. Chloe could only force a smile and wait for the heirloom locket to come up for bidding. Next, we have the dragon and phoenix heirloom locket. Believed to be crafted by imperial artisans during the 18th century, it features an exquisitely detailed, intertwined dragon and phoenix, a truly rare masterpiece. The bidding will start at $5 million. As soon as it was announced, Mrs. Davis started to raise her paddle. Chloe gently stopped her. Grandma, since it's for the baby, allow me. She snapped her fingers, signaling a show-stopping, preemptive bid. A preemptive bid, the auctioneer cried, banging the gavel. Sold. Congratulations to our guest. The dragon and phoenix locket will be brought to your suite immediately. Mrs. Davis clapped her hands, overjoyed. Oh, Chloe, that's wonderful. Chloe smiled and rose from her chair. Grandma, now that we have it, I should get back to the office. Mrs. Davis nodded, squeezing her hand affectionately. Chloe, you must take care of yourself. If anything were to happen to you, I don't know what I'd do. Don't worry, Grandma. I know what I'm doing. She pushed the door open, glanced at her watch and sighed. But then a small smile touched her lips. After the baby was born, she would take a long break. She would spend time with Ethan. She had neglected him so much lately. Of course, Ethan had his moments of immaturity, too. As Chloe was lost in thought, a familiar figure flashed past her in the hallway. The man was in a hurry, slipping past her and into a private suite down the hall. She called out uncertainly, Julian? He clearly didn't hear her, disappearing into the room with none of his usual timid demeanor. Chloe's heart sank. She quietly approached the door. He must have been in a rush. The door wasn't fully closed, leaving a slight crack. The voices of a man and a woman from inside the suite drifted out to her. Ms. Vance, I'm your man. I did everything you asked. I got your frenemy pregnant with my child. Aren't you going to make an honest man of me? The familiar male voice hit Chloe's ears like a bolt of lightning. Her eyes widened in disbelief. It was Julian. Are you deaf? I told you from the start, I am never going to marry you, no matter what you do. From the sound of her voice, Chloe recognized her as Ms. Vance, her biggest business frenemy for the past several years. I don't care. After everything I've done for you, you owe me for emotional damages. Julian's voice was no longer the sweet, innocent one Chloe knew. It was sharp and venomous. He added with a nasty chuckle, or maybe I should just have a little chat with your husband. At the mention of her husband, Ms. Vance's voice dropped. How much do you want? Julian laughed and held up 2 fingers. 200 million, Ms. Vance gasped. You have the nerve to blackmail me? You shameless leech. You've already got your hooks in the Davis family, and now you're trying to shake me down too. Julian just smiled. But I only did it for you. I sold my body to get back at your rival, Chloe Davis. I drugged her. I wore a shirt just like her husband's to trick her. Then I found out she was traveling, so I arranged that accident and played the hero to save her. That's the only reason she brought me into her home, to let me stay until the baby is born. Ms. Vance, the Davis family treats me well now, but the second this baby arrives, she's shipping me off with nothing. This could all blow back on you. This is your last chance. Give me the 200 million, and I'll help you finish ruining Chloe Davis. Then you'll have nothing to worry about. Julian's cold, sinister laugh echoed in Chloe's ears. There was a loud crash. You drugged me on purpose. Every head in the hallway turned. The heirloom locket, the one she had just won, lay shattered on the floor. Mrs. Davis's face was a mask of fury and panic. How could you do this to my granddaughter? Meanwhile, elsewhere, I finally finished cleaning the shop, planting my hands on my hips and letting out a deep sigh. It had been almost 2 weeks since I left Chloe. I'd chosen to move to a small town in Oregon. The air was clean, the pace of life was slow, and it was exactly what I needed. The first thing I did when I got here was rent a small storefront, just big enough to open the coffee shop I'd always wanted. I looked at my reflection in the front window and broke into a wide smile. How long had it been since I'd smiled like that? At that thought, a dull ache surfaced in the heart I thought had gone numb. Chloe and Julian and their child were probably living happily ever after by now. Chloe! I whispered her name, then quickly shook my head, trying to force her from my thoughts. I had a new life now. I couldn't let the past keep hurting me. As I stood there, lost in thought, something warm and soft rubbed against my ankle. Meow. A little orange cat was winding around my legs, purring softly. Hey there, little guy, I said, surprised and delighted. I crouched down to stroke his soft head. The little cat immediately rolled onto his back, exposing his belly and purring up a storm. He seems to like you, a bright, clear voice said from nearby. I turned my head and saw a woman standing a few feet away. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you there, I said, quickly getting to my feet. The woman smiled and crouched down too. The cat immediately trotted over to rub against her hand, as if they were old friends. Is he yours? I asked. No, she said, a soft smile gracing her lips that, for a moment, I found captivating. She set down a bag of freeze-dried cat food and expertly scratched the cat's belly. I just started seeing him around the neighborhood a little while ago. I try to feed him when I pass by. So he's a stray? I asked, meeting her smile. I think so, she said, her voice as pleasant as her smile. I'm sure he'd love to have a real home. I watched her pet the cat. Her long lashes cast soft shadows on her cheeks, and for a moment, she looked a little sad. Something soft deep inside me stirred. Well then, let's go, I said, scooping the cat up into my arms. The cat didn't struggle at all, but the woman looked completely bewildered. I said, enunciating clearly, to get him neutered. Then I perched the cat on my shoulder and gave her a brilliant smile. I was already looking up the nearest vet on my phone. She let me pull her to her feet, still looking stunned as I found a clinic and started walking, the cat still on my shoulder. She stood frozen for a moment before grabbing her bag of cat food and hurrying to catch up. She cleared her throat and held out her hand. I'm Stella, by the way. It's nice to meet you. I stopped walking and took her hand, shaking it firmly. Ethan, I just moved here. Nice to meet you too. The cat, as if on cue, placed a tiny paw on top of our joined hands and let out a soft meow. We looked at each other and both burst out laughing. And with that laugh, the ghosts of my past that had been haunting me seemed to fade into the evening air. Stella walked beside me. So you're the one opening that new coffee shop on the corner. I nodded. Grand opening is tomorrow. Looks like I'll have a little mascot with me. The cat meowed right on cue and nuzzled my cheek. Stella chimed in. Well, I'll be there. I've been looking forward to you opening. A few minutes later, we arrived at the veterinary clinic. Back at the auction house, Mrs. Davis was livid. Explain yourselves. What is the meaning of this? The moment Julian saw Chloe and her grandmother in the doorway, he was so frightened he collapsed to the floor, his earlier arrogance vanishing like a mirage. Ms. Vance had gone pale, and she sat trembling on the sofa. As powerful as her family was, she had never gone head-to-head with the Davis family before. Chloe helped her grandmother into the suite. Ms. Vance immediately jumped up to offer Mrs. Davis her seat. Mrs. Davis's face was grim. The moment she sat down, she demanded, "Tell me exactly what happened." Two large bodyguards stepped forward, and both Julian and Ms. Vance looked terrified, especially Julian. "Mrs. Davis, please have some tea." "Don't let this upset you," Ms. Vance said, signaling for an attendant to bring a cup. She hurried to Mrs. Davis's side, forcing a smile. "Mrs. Davis, this really has nothing to do with me. It's true he and I were involved for a time, but you know how things are in our world." Mrs. Davis's expression hardened, and Ms. Vance quickly changed her tune. "He's nothing but a professional gigolo, con artist. I gave him $2 million and it wasn't enough. He used me, claiming he was doing it all for me while playing both our families for fools." Ms. Vance was a skilled liar, expertly painting both her family and the Davis family as innocent victims of Julian's schemes. Mrs. Davis's expression softened slightly. Chloe suddenly spoke up. "Ms. Vance, tell us the entire truth, and the Davis Corporation will call off its current offensive against your company. We can even discuss future partnerships." Her face was dark, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. A flicker of hesitation crossed Ms. Vance's face. This could be an opportunity. She cleared her throat, forcing a sycophantic smile onto her wrinkled face. "I met him at a club. He was a college student, handsome, so I took him as my lover. At my age, with grown, married children, I could never make it official. Everyone knows our companies are rivals. Who could have imagined the monster would use my name as a cover to drug your granddaughter?" Ms. Vance's face darkened as she shot a look of pure disgust at Julian. "He got your granddaughter pregnant and then tried to blackmail me into marrying him. How could I possibly agree to that? I had him taught a lesson at that gala. I thought that would be the end of it, but he's relentless. He drugged Chloe and convinced you all he was some innocent victim." Hearing this, Mrs. Davis shot to her feet. "What a vile creature," she exclaimed, "to put my darling granddaughter through such an ordeal." Ms. Vance nodded vigorously. "Mrs. Davis, please, don't work yourself up. A child from such a wicked man, even if it has Davis blood, you can't possibly keep it. He's so manipulative for someone so young. Even I was completely fooled." Ms. Vance continued. "He came to me for money 3 times. The second time, I demanded proof of his claims. He threatened that if I didn't pay, he'd tell you all that he got the drug from me." Mrs. Davis stood frozen, as if time had stopped. After a long moment, she slowly sank back into her chair, clutching her chest. "Our family, to be so thoroughly deceived by a man like that." Chloe quickly had the bodyguards escort her grandmother to the hospital. Once they were gone, she turned her cold, hard gaze on the still trembling Julian. Julian finally snapped out of his stupor and scrambled to his knees. "Chloe, it's not true. She's lying. She's making it all up to trick you." Ms. Vance cut in coldly. "That's my story. Feel free to investigate. You'll see soon enough whether I'm lying." Chloe's face was like ice, and the look she gave him was glacial. She said one word, her voice low and dangerous: "Investigate." At her word, Ms. Vance waved her hand, and 2 of her men appeared. Ms. Vance ordered them, "Take this man to the basement. Ms. Davis and I will question him ourselves." Julian screamed, "No, Chloe, please. Believe me. Don't believe her. It's all lies. I swear I didn't know what was happening that night." He was dragged away by his feet. As they pulled him past Chloe, he lunged and grabbed her ankle. "Chloe, don't you believe me? Weren't you excited about our baby?" He looked up at her, tears streaming down his cheeks. Any other time, her heart would have melted, and she would have rushed to comfort him. But now, she just stared down at him, her face a cold, blank mask. Taking her silence for hesitation, Julian blurted out, "Chloe, Ethan's gone anyway. Why can't we just be a family, the 3 of us?" A sudden, violent strength surged through Chloe. She lunged down and grabbed him by the throat, her voice a low, furious growl. "Who's gone?" Ms. Vance quickly backed away, turning her head. Julian clawed at her hands as she squeezed, his face turning a sickening shade of purple, tears and mucus streaming from his face. Chloe loosened her grip slightly, and he collapsed, gasping for air. The acrid smell of urine filled the room. Ms. Vance rushed over, covering her nose. "Ms. Davis, please calm down. Don't worry, I will personally deliver a full confession to your home." I guarantee it will be the truth. Julian finally seemed to understand the reality of his situation. The pitiful, innocent mask dropped, revealing a twisted, ugly expression beneath. He had nothing left to lose. Chloe Davis, he spat. No wonder Ethan was so desperate to divorce you. The words hit Chloe like a physical blow. Her hand went limp. Julian scrambled away from her, a vicious smirk spreading across his face as he looked at her stunned expression. You didn't know, did you? Ethan left you. He's long gone. Meanwhile, elsewhere. Stella, are you sure you're okay spending the whole day here with Nugget? I asked, setting a coffee down in front of her. The latte art was a perfect little cat face. Stella smiled. I'm fine. She couldn't resist giving Nugget another belly rub. After we'd taken the little guy to be neutered that first day, it just felt natural for him to stay with me at the shop while he recovered. Even with the cone of shame on, nothing could stop him from devouring his food, which is how he earned the name Nugget. And ever since that day, Stella had become a permanent fixture in my shop. She'd be waiting at the door before I opened and would only leave reluctantly when I locked up for the night. Thanks to Stella and Nugget, business was booming. My plan for a quiet, relaxed life had been replaced by days so busy I barely had a moment to sit down. Ethan, have you found an apartment yet? Stella asked one afternoon. I shook my head with a sigh. Nothing I've looked at has felt right. For now, I'm just staying here at the shop. I stretched, rubbing a knot in my shoulder. This makeshift bed isn't the most comfortable, though, and poor Nugget has to curl up at my feet. Stella hesitated for a moment. Ethan, my house is actually pretty big. If you wouldn't mind, you could stay with me. I started to refuse. Stella, I couldn't possibly. But for some reason, the image of us meeting for the first time flashed in my mind, and I heard myself say, okay. Stella looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. Really? A happy glow spread across her gentle features. I felt my face flush. Stella beamed. Let's go right after we close tonight, then. No point in waiting. She started towards the loft where I kept my things. We close in 2 hours. We can get you packed up and head over. I couldn't help but laugh at her eagerness. We still have to move all of Nugget's stuff, you know? She just paused on the stairs, looked back at me, and winked. No need. I already bought him everything he needs. I stood there, speechless. I was starting to get the feeling this woman had been planning this for a while. Meanwhile, at the Davis estate, Ms. Vance carefully and respectfully presented Chloe and Mrs. Davis with a full interrogation report and a video recording. The moment Mrs. Davis saw the contents of the report and the video, she looked as if she was about to faint. Chloe stared at the words on the page, her hand clutching the report so tightly her knuckles were white. On the night of the 19th, Julian Miller admitted to administering the drug himself, using a substance known to have potent and harmful side effects, with the express purpose of inducing pregnancy in Chloe Davis. Chloe let out a cold, bitter laugh, and the crumpled report slipped from her fingers. Ms. Vance quickly stepped forward. Mrs. Davis, please, rest assured. I will deal with this man. He will never trouble your family again. But a chilling smile touched Chloe's lips, her bloodshot eyes glinting with a terrifying coldness. That won't be necessary, Ms. Vance. The Davis family will handle him. A black sports car tore through the silent, empty streets. The woman behind the wheel had her face cast in shadow, her expression impossible to read. Ethan, she whispered, her heart a cavern of guilt and regret. Her phone, sitting on the passenger seat, suddenly rang. She pulled the car over and answered. Her grandmother's voice was frantic. Chloe, did you find Ethan? What did he say? Has he forgiven us? Chloe's heart plummeted, but she forced a reassuring tone for her grandmother. Ethan is so kind, and he loves me. Of course he'll forgive me. Her grandmother started sobbing. I never should have struck him. He must hate me now. Chloe's own emotions were a tangled mess. Grandma, I'll call you back. Please try to get some rest. For the first time in her life, she hung up on her grandmother, silencing the sobs. Ethan, you won't blame me, will you? She replayed the events of the past few months in her mind, over and over, until she finally slapped herself hard across the face. Chloe Davis, how could you let a man like that fool you so completely? How could you neglect the person you love most in the world? She looked up at our house. It was dark. She probably assumed I was already asleep. Chloe got out of the car but stood frozen at the front door, unable to bring herself to go inside. Who would have ever imagined that Chloe Davis, the woman who commanded boardrooms and bent the market to her will, could be so utterly lost? Ethan, you won't blame me. You'll understand, won't you? She whispered to herself. But Julian's words echoed in her mind, and the panic in her chest swelled. Ethan loves me so much. He'll forgive me, she said, her voice shrinking until it was a whisper, her own words sounding hollow even to her. After everything she had done, could I really forgive her? When she thought about it, she realized it had been almost a month since she'd last seen me. She had spent all her time with Julian, never once stopping to think about the man she loved, waiting for her, alone, at home. It was only today, when the truth had been forced upon her, that she finally woke up and understood the magnitude of her betrayal. How long had it been since she had truly been with the man she loved? A sharp, violent pain lanced through Chloe's heart. Ethan, I will make this up to you. I swear it. She finally pushed the door open, and her heart, which had been hanging by a thread, plummeted into an abyss. The house was empty. A thick layer of dust covered everything, and the stale, musty air told her that no one had been home in a very long time. Panic seized her. She flipped on the lights, revealing the layer of dust that coated every surface. Ethan, real panic set in. She knew I was a neat freak. I would never have let the house get like this. As if possessed, she tore through the house, throwing open every door, yanking open every drawer. Her search was no longer for me, but for any sign of me. Chloe sank to her knees in despair. Ethan, did you really leave? You don't want me anymore? She had searched every inch of the house and found nothing. Not a single thing of mine was left. She felt hollowed out, a walking ghost in the empty house. Dejected, she wandered into the bedroom. When she opened the drawer of the nightstand, she saw a single manila envelope lying inside. Her eyes lit up with a desperate hope. Ethan, you did give me another chance. She tore open the envelope, clinging to that last sliver of hope. But when she saw the embossed gold letters on the document inside, the tears she'd been holding back finally broke free. Divorce decree. Her hands shaking, Chloe pulled out her phone and dialed my number. We're sorry, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. Please check the number and try again. The automated voice repeated the message, but Chloe, refusing to believe it, dialed the number again and again. She knelt on the floor, a pathetic figure, the official decree lying beside her, her silent tears splashing onto the cover. Her voice was heavy and dead when she called her assistant. Find my husband's location. The assistant, jolted awake, immediately snapped to attention. I'll get my contacts on it right away. After hanging up, Chloe picked up the decree again. She stared at my slightly too young photo on the document and remembered all the promises she had made to me. You have to treat him right. You have to spoil him rotten, or I'll never forgive you. Ethan, I'm so sorry. The Chloe she used to be would have despised the pathetic woman she had become. She would have wanted to destroy her, and it was all because of... A pale, grim smile twisted Chloe's lips, and a cold fire lit her eyes. Julian Miller, I will make you pay. At that exact moment, I was rescuing Nugget after he'd knocked over a tube of paint. I scooped up the mischievous cat, giving him a gentle tap on the head with my knuckle. You're interrupting the master at work, you little menace. Nugget let out an indignant meow, and the two of us began to playfully argue. Stella paused her painting to watch us, her eyes soft and full of affection. Her once quiet, empty studio was now full of life. I put Nugget outside the studio door and sighed, crouching down to clean up the mess of paint tubes he'd made. Stella knelt down beside me. I'll help, she said, and began tidying up with me. Suddenly, both our hands reached for the same tube of paint. I quickly pulled my hand back, but her soft hand gently covered mine, holding it there. From years of painting, her fingertips had light calluses, and the feeling of them against my skin was surprisingly distinct. I stammered, Stella, and tried to pull my hand away, but she suddenly tightened her grip, her fingers weaving through mine until our hands were clasped together. Then, she launched herself into my arms, sending the paint tubes we just gathered scattering across the floor once more. We were pressed chest to chest, heart to heart, and I could feel the frantic beating of hers against mine. Stella, what are you doing? Ethan, you have to know how I feel about you by now, don't you? She whispered, nuzzling against my chest like a cat marking its territory. And don't you dare say anything about being divorced, she said, suddenly bold as she shifted to sit on my lap. A strand of her hair tickled my ear. You told me that a dozen times when you first moved in. Were you trying to get me to back off? She gave my shoulder a playful, frustrated nip. You know I wouldn't. And you feel something for me too, don't you? I bit my lip. Stella, this isn't a game. I've been hurt before, and I know what that feels like. I don't want to be the one to hurt you. She looked me straight in the eye, her voice firm. You won't. You would never hurt me. She pulled back slightly, her earnest gaze meeting mine. Ethan, can you really not accept me? It's like someone who talks about wanting to adopt a stray cat, but then when one shows up on his doorstep, he turns it away. For a crazy second, I could almost imagine a pair of pointed cat ears drooping sadly in her hair. Someone just waltzes into your life, and then tries to leave without a word, she said, her voice laced with hurt as her hand slowly loosened its grip on mine. I bet by tomorrow you'll be insisting on moving out. And even if I came by the shop, you'd just look right through me, like I was invisible. Her voice faded as she started to push me away. Just forget I said anything. We can still be. I smiled. Who said I was turning the cat away? I'm keeping her. Stella froze, and I tightened my grip on her hand, stroking her back gently as if I were calming a kitten. Since you've already shown up on my doorstep, I guess I have no choice but to take you in. Stella stared at me for a long moment, then leaned in and kissed me. As the kiss deepened, she whispered against my lips, "So you won't abandon the kitten? You won't take back the home you've given her?" Kissed her back, breathless. "Never," I murmured, nipping gently at her lower lip as if to seal the promise. Meanwhile, back at the Davis estate, Julian was kneeling on the floor, his face a bloody, swollen mess. 2 bodyguards were taking turns striking him across the face, methodically and without pause. But Mrs. Davis was still not appeased. "How dare you deceive me?" she shrieked. "Deceive the Davis family." Chloe entered the room, her steps heavy. The moment her grandmother saw her, she rushed over. "Chloe, where is Ethan? Did he forgive you?" Chloe's face was grim as she shook her head. "Oh, what are we to do? Ethan must despise me now," Mrs. Davis wailed, turning to slap Julian across the face. "And you, how dare you target our family?" Chloe stared coldly at the weeping man on the floor, her assistant's words from earlier ringing in her ears. "Ms. Davis, we can't find any trace of your husband. It's like he's erased his entire identity." Fury and hatred coiled in Chloe's gut. "Someone," she commanded, her voice dangerously low, "break his legs." Julian looked up in disbelief. "Chloe, no. Please, what will I do?" Chloe just looked down at him, all traces of her former affection gone. "You love to act, don't you? You love to lie. Ms. Vance has already washed her hands of you. You're ours to deal with now." Her eyes were chips of ice. "Take him away. Show him what a living hell truly is." She was numb to the pain in her own heart. All that mattered now was finding me and begging for my forgiveness. "We've finished the investigation you requested," her assistant said, holding out a small, metallic flash drive. "All the surveillance footage is on here." Chloe's fingers trembled as she took the drive and plugged it into her laptop. She had known deep down. Looking back, she knew I was never the kind of person who could hurt anyone. But she had to see it for herself. This would be her punishment. Choking back waves of regret and rage, Chloe watched every second of the footage. She saw it all. While she was being comforted by Julian, I had been downstairs, burning with fever, cutting my hand when I knocked over a glass of water in my delirium. She saw how, at the stables, while she fussed over Julian, I had stood by and watched. She saw how, the moment she walked away to take a call, Julian had provoked my horse, causing the collision. She saw me fall, and she saw herself turn her back, leaving the man she claimed to love to be trampled, nearly to death. She saw that the soup had been fine. It was Julian who had drugged it, trying to cause a miscarriage and frame me for it. And she had believed him. She had believed him and, as a twisted form of punishment, had left me for dead in a blizzard, buried under an avalanche. What have I done? Chloe buried her face in her hands, her body racked with tonku. "Ethan, how could I have done those things to you? Losing you, I've lost everything." Her tears splashed onto the back of her hands. "Help me!" A blood-curdling scream from the basement shattered her thoughts. "Julian Miller, you will pay for what you've done," she thought, picturing the bloody, broken man downstairs with a frown of disgust. Julian was crying, still trying to appeal to her. "Chloe, I swear I'll never do it again. You love me. Please, just let me go. I'll disappear. You and Ethan will never see me again." Chloe imagined grabbing him by the throat, a humorless, rage-filled laugh bubbling in her chest. "Love you." A pang of pain shot through her. Yes, from Ethan's perspective, hadn't her actions screamed that she loved Julian? And hadn't her heart, for one shameful moment, actually wavered? "Julian," she asked the empty room, "the divorce papers? Did you trick me into signing them?" "In the basement," Julian screamed. "It was Ethan. He asked me to get you to sign them. It was his idea." In the blink of an eye, the bodyguards broke both of his legs. "Chloe, help me. You're carrying my child." Julian cried, his face pale and his eyes wild with pain and fear. Mrs. Davis, who had returned, was apoplectic. You monster! Still trying to use that child. Guards, throw him in the pool. Have a doctor on standby. I don't want the bastard to die too quickly. Lying broken on the floor, Julian began to laugh, a wild, unhinged sound. Ha 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 ha. Chloe Davis. Mrs. Davis. If you hadn't indulged me, if you hadn't treated Ethan so coldly, would he have ever left? And now you blame it all on me. Ha ha ha. He was still laughing like a madman as the guards dragged him away, leaving 2 crimson trails on the marble floor. Chloe, her grandmother asked softly, is Ethan really not coming back? Mrs. Davis pressed something cold into her hand, pulling her from her thoughts. She looked down. It was the jade pendant I had broken, now painstakingly pieced back together with delicate gold seams. I had my people make some inquiries, Mrs. Davis said. It seems Ethan is living in Chicago now. I was wrong, Chloe. I will go to him myself and apologize. Chloe looked at her grandmother. The formidable matriarch seemed to have aged a decade in a single day. I will, Grandma, she said, her hand closing around the cool jade. I'll bring Ethan home, elsewhere. Stella and I were walking through the grocery store, her pushing the cart. Ethan, what do you feel like for dinner tonight? I smiled and listed a few of my favorite dishes, and she agreed to each one, a happy light dancing in her eyes. She squeezed my hand as we walked out of the store, our cart full. I swung our joined hands playfully. I need to stop by the shop to roast some beans for tomorrow. Care to join me, my great artist? Stella leaned over and kissed my cheek. Of course. This sweet, domestic moment was witnessed in its entirety by a third person. Chloe suddenly lunged forward, yanking me away from Stella with surprising force. Ethan, she cried, her voice thick with jealousy as she tried to kiss my face. How could you? How could you let another woman touch you? Ethan, how could you do this to me? Her eyes were wild and red-rimmed. Her voice choked with a pain that felt like a knife twisting in her gut. Do you have any idea how much it hurts to see you kiss her? She clung to me like a madwoman, her grip like iron, refusing to let go no matter how much I struggled. She pressed her lips to mine, trying to erase the kiss from another woman. Ethan, you're mine. You can only be mine. Stella stepped forward. Let go of him, she yelled, and slapped Chloe hard across the face. The sting of the slap made Chloe stumble back, her grip on me finally loosening. I scrambled away from her. Stella! Stella immediately pulled me behind her, her expression fierce and protective, her hand gripping mine tightly. Chloe wiped a trickle of blood from her lip, her eyes still fixed on me, bloodshot and pleading. Ethan, I covered my ears, unwilling to hear another word she had to say. Ethan, please don't do this. I had an abortion. The baby is gone. I'm clean now, she said, my rejection hitting her like a physical blow. You're killing me, Ethan. Please, just look at me. I'm begging you. She had shed every ounce of her pride, her dignity, begging me in a way I'd never seen before. I just closed my eyes. Seeing my distress, Stella stepped between us. Chloe, just leave him alone. Her usually gentle face was hard as stone. Haven't you hurt him enough? What gives you the right to show up here and do this to him? Chloe didn't even look at her. Her pained eyes were fixed on me, standing behind Stella. Stella said nothing more. She just took my hand, hailed the first cab she saw, and pulled me inside. The taxi sped off, leaving Chloe standing alone on the sidewalk. She watched us drive away, a pain so deep it felt like her heart was being torn from her chest. So this is what it felt like, she thought. This was the pain Ethan felt when he watched her leave with Julian. If she had known, she never would have let Julian set foot in their lives. Ethan, are you okay? I opened my eyes. I was lying in a soft, comfortable bed. Stella was sitting beside me, her face etched with worry. When she saw my eyes open, she let out a breath of relief. I rubbed my eyes. Stella! A mug was already at my lips. Don't think about it, she said softly. Just drink some water. I nodded and took the mug from her. Nugget immediately jumped onto the bed and began rubbing against my hand, meowing anxiously. Stella gently petted his head. He's been waiting for you to wake up. She then looked at me, her eyes full of warmth. I made you some of your favorite vegetable soup. Promise me you'll just rest and try not to think about it. I looked into her kind eyes, and my heart began to beat a steady, reassuring rhythm. I've already arranged for the shop's deliveries, she said. After you eat, I'll go take care of things. You just stay here and rest. She leaned in and gave me a long, sweet kiss before pulling away reluctantly. I'll go get your soup. Stella smiled and turned to head downstairs. Ethan, please look at me. Chloe was standing behind me in the coffee shop the next morning, her voice thick with unshed tears. I ignored her, continuing with my morning routine of opening the shop as if she wasn't there. Ethan, please, just listen to me, she pleaded, following me inside as I switched on the espresso machine and started washing mugs. She froze, a long-forgotten memory suddenly surfacing. Chloe, all I want in life is to be free and relaxed, a younger me had said, as we sat side by side under the stars. Ethan, whatever kind of life you want, I'll be right there with you, a younger Chloe had replied, her voice still girlish. We were in middle school. You wouldn't understand, Chloe, the boy had said with a sad smile. The girl had gotten defensive. Why wouldn't I? The boy had hesitated. Chloe, you're going to be the heir to the Davis Corporation. You'll have the weight of your family and the company on your shoulders. You'll have to marry someone who benefits the business, have a bunch of kids, and train them to take over. I don't want that life. I just want to open a little coffee shop and spend my life with someone I love, being free. The girl had grabbed his hand. I won't be like that, Ethan. I'm only ever going to marry you. The boy had just smiled, not looking at her. And later, the boy had fallen in love with her. He had changed his entire life for her, becoming the perfect, supportive husband. And the girl had forgotten. She had forgotten the boy's dream. She had forgotten that night under the stars. A tear suddenly fell from Chloe's eye, splashing onto the back of my hand. I flinched away from her touch and finally spoke. Chloe, we're divorced. There is nothing between us anymore. My voice was flat, devoid of any emotion, as if I truly no longer cared. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I know everything now. Julian was a plant, sent by someone to get revenge on me. He approached me on purpose. He drugged me. I know about all the lies he told, all the things he framed you for. I raised an eyebrow. Sent by who? She explained quickly. A business frenemy of mine. Julian was her boy toy for years, but she never made it official. He was bitter, so he came after me. Ethan, my grandmother and I have dealt with him. He will never be a part of our lives again. I let out a humorless laugh. Ms. Davis, please leave my shop. I'm afraid we can't accommodate someone of your stature here. A wounded look crossed her face. If I can't fix the past, then let me win you back. We can start over. Forget the past, just think about the future. Please. I laughed, the sound sharp with anger. Chloe, are you insane? But nothing I said seemed to get through to her. She actually began trying to court me all over again. The next day, I had just unlocked the door when she swept in, carrying a bucket overflowing with fresh, dew-kissed roses. Chloe, I don't want these in my shop. She ignored me, setting them on the counter. Ethan, I'd love some of your homemade pudding, she said, pulling out her black card. I'll take 50 orders. I leaned against the wall, my smile tight and humorless. Not for sale. On the third day, she didn't bring roses. Instead, she showed up with a crew of delivery men carrying large boxes into my shop. I blocked the doorway. What is all this? She stepped forward. Ethan, I just wanted to upgrade your equipment. A new espresso machine. My expression was cold. I don't want it. Get them out of here. And so it went. Every day, Chloe would be there when I opened, and she would wait silently across the street until I closed. I finally snapped. One evening, after the last customer had left, I dragged her inside. Chloe, are you a child? I demanded, my face flushed with anger. Are you still playing these stupid little games? She didn't argue. Seeing me so angry, a small, sad smile touched her lips. Her reaction only made me angrier. Chloe, we are divorced. Stop harassing me. If you keep this up, I'll have to close the shop. She just stood there, her head bowed like a chastised schoolgirl. Ethan, I don't know how to court someone. This is the only way I know. It's how I won you over the first time. I was taken aback. It was true. Chloe had never known how to be subtle. Her only method of courtship was a clumsy, overwhelming possessiveness, using her family name to scare away any potential rivals. And I had been drawn to that clumsy, fierce love, believing it was something she reserved only for me. Who would have thought that same fierce possessiveness could be turned against me? I let out a cold laugh. It doesn't matter, Chloe. I've already told you it's over between us. Stella and I are getting married. Please, leave us alone. The words hit her like a physical blow, a freezing shock that seemed to shatter something deep inside her. Married? You're getting married? She repeated, her voice hollow. She lunged forward and grabbed my wrist, her grip so tight I thought she might break it. I winced in pain but gritted my teeth. Yes, we're getting married. So please, Stay out of our lives. She suddenly threw her arms around my neck, kissing me desperately. No, I won't allow it. I shoved her away. Chloe, you're insane. Her eyes were wild. Yes, I'm insane. I've been insane since the moment I lost you. She bit down on my neck, not hard enough to break the skin, but enough to make me freeze. Everything was my fault. I never should have let anyone come between us. Ethan, please, give me one more chance. I'll go back to being the Chloe who loved only you. I swear it. Stella, I cried out, my voice shaking. Stella appeared, slapping Chloe away from me and shielding me with her body. Ethan, don't look. Just go home. Go now. I'll handle this. Okay? She pressed her car keys into my hand. Go! Knowing it was better for me not to get involved in a fight between them, I nodded and ran out. Stella watched until I had started the car and driven away before she turned back to face Chloe. Her expression was colder than I had ever seen it, her eyes blazing with fury. Chloe, you need to stop. All you're doing is hurting him more. Do you know he still has nightmares? He dreams that he's being trampled by horses, that his ribs are being crushed. He dreams that you've left him to die in the snow, about to be buried by an avalanche. Chloe stood frozen, the fight draining out of her. I'm sorry. It was the only thing she could think to say. Stella slapped her again. If you're really sorry, then leave him alone. Chloe stumbled back from the force of the blow, a trickle of blood appearing at the corner of her mouth. She didn't retaliate. She just stood there, looking utterly broken, repeating, I'm sorry. Seeing her state, Stella said nothing more and walked away. Chloe stood alone in the empty shop for a long time before she finally moved. When she returned the next day, a for lease sign was hanging in the window. She stared at the sign for a long time before she finally turned and walked away. Mrs. Davis had been waiting on the sofa since she heard Chloe was coming home. Where is Ethan? She asked, looking behind Chloe, only to find her alone. He's not coming back, Grandma. The bruise on Chloe's cheek was still visible. Mrs. Davis saw the mark and her heart ached for her granddaughter. Grandma, you should take this back, Chloe said, holding out the gold-seamed jade pendant. Ethan doesn't want it. Mrs. Davis stared at it for a moment, then began to beat her chest in despair. It's all that monster Julian's fault. He drove my grandson-in-law away. Chloe remained silent, listening to her grandmother's tirade. That animal has gone completely insane. He can't even control his own body anymore. I had him sent to Ms. Vance's estate. I couldn't stand the sight of him, but the worthless creature did give me an idea. Mrs. Davis pulled her granddaughter close, whispering in her ear, Chloe, listen to me. Perhaps you could drug Ethan? If you get pregnant with his child, he'll have to come back. Chloe immediately shook her head. Grandma, no, we can't do that. Ethan never wanted children this soon. Before she could finish, her grandmother lost her temper. Then what other choice do we have, Chloe? Are you willing to marry someone else? This is the only way. A child will tie him to you. Ethan has a soft heart. If we cater to his every need, and you're carrying his child, do you really think he could leave you? Chloe didn't answer. Seeing her hesitation, Mrs. Davis pressed on. Chloe, don't you love him? Of course you do. Can you bear the thought of him out there, alone with some other woman? It's better this way. Give him a child, and we will spend the rest of our lives making it up to him. He says he doesn't want a baby, but once it's his, he won't be able to stay away. And how could he leave the mother of his child? Chloe's eyes darkened. All right, Grandma. Mrs. Davis beamed. Leave everything to me. All you have to do is go to him. But for days, Chloe couldn't bring herself to go through with it. Then, her grandmother pressed a small vial and a slip of paper into her hand. Chloe, this is Ethan's new address. It took a great deal of effort to find it. Chloe stared at the paper, then slowly unfolded it. Ethan had moved to a new city. The pain in her heart flared anew. Was she so repulsive to him that he would rather give up his shop and move to an entirely new city just to get away from her? Was that Stella woman really so special? She tightened her fist around the small vial. Grandma, she said, her voice low, I'm going to find Ethan. Mrs. Davis's face lit up. Chloe, he must still love you. After more than 20 years together, how could he just throw it all away? She ushered Chloe towards the door. I've already arranged for the private jet to Chicago. Go find him. Even as she sat on the plane, the whole thing felt unreal. She stared down at the vial in her palm, her resolve wavering. She closed her eyes and slipped the vial into her purse. She whispered to herself, this will be our final goodbye. The plane landed smoothly. After a long hesitation, she finally dialed the number on the slip of paper. Hello, The warm, gentle voice on the other end of the line made her heart ache. Hello? Is anyone there? Chloe's grip on her phone tightened until her knuckles were white. Finally, she spoke. Ethan, it's me. I'm in Chicago. Please just give me one last chance. Let me say goodbye. I sat in an elegant Michelin-starred restaurant, staring at a plate of my favorite French cuisine, but I had no appetite. Chloe watched me nervously. Ethan, is it not to your liking? We can go somewhere else. I looked at her, my face a blank mask. No, this is fine. Say what you have to say. After this, we're done. We will never see each other again. Done. The words struck her like a physical blow. Her eyes reddened, and a small, broken sound escaped her lips. Ethan, after more than 20 years, are you really just going to throw it all away? I laughed coldly. Chloe, what is there left to say? I've already stepped aside for your perfect little family of 3. Her face was a mask of regret. Ethan, don't say that. I got rid of the baby. We can have our own child, a child that belongs to both of us. She looked at me desperately, searching my face for any lingering trace of the love I once had for her. But I just stared back at her, my expression cold, and delivered my ultimatum. Chloe, say what you need to say. I have somewhere else to be. Seeing my cold indifference, she was too hurt to speak. She finally managed to force the words out through gritted teeth. Where do you have to be? I looked at her with open impatience. What does it matter to you? If this is all you wanted to say, then we're done here. I stood up, pushing my chair back to leave. She jumped up to block my path. Ethan, please just tell me, she begged. Tell me what could possibly be more important than me. My face was impassive. Everything is more important than you. But if you must know, I'm taking my fiancée for her wedding dress fitting. What? She asked again, refusing to believe it. Her eyes shot through with terrifying red veins. Ethan, don't lie to me. If you're just saying that to hurt me, you might as well just kill me now. Her hand shot out and grabbed my arm, her eyes searching my face for any sign that I was lying. I frowned. Chloe, let go of me. You're the one who asked for a final goodbye. That's the only reason I'm here. I should have known it was just another lie. How many times have you lied to me? Chloe, I've lost count. You've been lying to me since the day you told me you were pregnant. I just want to be free of it. Let me go, Chloe. For both our sakes. There is no future for us. I have my life now and you have yours. Can't we just leave it at that? But the last thread of her sanity had already snapped. She couldn't imagine a life without me. Ethan, I can't live without you, she sobbed. Please come back to me. I pulled my arm from her grasp. Chloe, have you ever stopped to think that I compromised my entire life to marry you? I wanted a simple, quiet life. But for you, I gave it all up. I put on a mask and played the part of the perfect, supportive husband. And what did you do? You not only failed to appreciate it, you had a child with another man and expected me to just accept it, all while talking about your difficult situation. What difficult situation, Chloe? My throat was dry from talking. I picked up my untouched glass of water and drained it in one go. Ethan, no, don't drink that. Chloe watched, horrified, as I finished the entire glass, her hand hovering uselessly in the air. I looked at the empty glass, confused. What? Is there something wrong with the water? Quick, Ethan, come on, I'll take you to the hospital, she said, grabbing my arm and pulling me out of the restaurant. I tried to pull away. What are you doing? But a strange heat was already spreading through my body. She managed to bundle me into her car. What's happening to me? I mumbled from the back seat. The car's first-scented air freshener suddenly seemed like a potent aphrodisiac, and I let out an involuntary groan. Chloe's heart flooded with regret. She had arrived at the restaurant early and, on a terrible impulse, had spiked my water. Now, her grandmother's words echoed in her ears. I seemed to be losing my senses, driven only by a primal urge to get closer to her. Her eyes darkened. Ethan, do you know who I am? Seeing me, disheveled and vulnerable, she could no longer contain the possessive love that surged within her. Do you know how much it hurts me to see you with another woman? She whispered, her lips brushing against my throat, her fingers lacing through mine. Has she ever kissed you here? Does she even know all the places you love to be kissed? The air in the car grew thick and hot. I bit my lip, trying to focus. Chloe kissed me, her voice a low, seductive whisper. Who am I? But then, through the drug-induced haze, I shoved her away. You're not Stella, I slurred. Who are you? Chloe froze, the lust in her eyes clearing for a moment. Ethan, you really don't recognize me? It's me, Chloe. You're Chloe. But I just shook my head, mumbling, Chloe? Don't know her. Where's Stella? I want Stella. Chloe went completely still. She finally understood what it felt like for one's heart to die. Before, she could lie to herself, tell herself I was just angry, that I was trying to hurt her, that it was impossible for me to love someone else. But this right here was undeniable proof. She no longer held a place in my heart. The person I loved most was no longer her. With a bitter, broken smile, Chloe got back into the driver's seat. "Ethan, I've already hurt you so much," she whispered. "How could I possibly hurt you again?" She looked in the rearview mirror at the man she loved more than life itself. She knew this time it was truly goodbye. "Ethan, as long as you're happy, it doesn't matter if it's not with me." She started the car and drove quickly towards the nearest hospital. "Ethan, if the me from 10 years in the future is ever unkind to you, you have to leave me. And never, ever forgive me." For some reason, she remembered the words her 16-year-old self had so carefully written in that letter. If that 16-year-old girl had known what her 26-year-old self would do, how she would torture me for a stranger, drug me, and try to steal my life away, she would have wanted to kill the woman she had become. Tears filled her eyes. "Ethan," she whispered, "promise me you'll never forgive me." Chloe got me to the emergency room, and then, using her own phone, she called Stella. As she watched Stella sprint through the hospital doors, Chloe finally turned and walked away, but not before taking one last, lingering look at me. Epilogue: I stood at the top of the cliff, the wind whipping through my sweat-dampened hair. "Stella, I love the ocean here," I said. Stella smiled, taking the mountain bike from my hands. I wrapped my arms around her, pointing to a page in her sketchbook. "Stella, let's go to Greece. This sea you painted, it looks lonely, and you told me you hate being lonely, so I want to go there with you." My eyes shone with excitement. Stella looked from her old painting to me, then leaned in and kissed my cheek. "Okay," she agreed. "With you there, I'm sure the sea won't be lonely at all." And she was right. I stood on the cliffs of Santorini, my arms outstretched to the sun. The Aegean Sea below, once a silent expanse in her painting, was now a dazzling, shimmering blue. "Stella, from now on, we're going to see all the oceans," I said, holding her close, my eyes full of dreams for our future. "Every single one in the world." She didn't treat it as a joke. She looked at me seriously and said, "Okay, and I'll paint every single one, with you and me and Nugget, right there on the shore." She kissed the corner of my mouth, a soft, gentle press that felt like a promise. "It's a promise," she whispered, "to see all the oceans, and to always, always, always be together."